Nick Reiner murder case, who is paying the legal bills, and more questions. A breakdown of issues at play in the case ahead of the Los Angeles arraignment. For what's been characterized as an open and shut case, remarkably little is known about the slayings of Hollywood icon Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle. They were found fatally stabbed in the master bedroom of their Brentwood home, and their son, Nick Reiner, was arrested shortly after for the killings. Law enforcement has not said what made them focus on him as a suspect, and prosecutors have yet to detail a motive or what happened. Alan Jackson, his high-flying lawyer, has cautioned against speculation. There are very, very complex, serious issues associated with this case, he said last month. But if the case against him is strong, expect Reiner's drug use and related mental health disorders to play a major role in the trial, sentencing, and posture of prosecutors. Reiner was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances relating to multiple homicides. Los Angeles County prosecutors have also advanced a special allegation over the use of a deadly weapon, a knife, in the crime. If convicted as charged, he could face a death sentence or life in prison without the possibility of parole, though a decision hasn't been made on whether to seek capital punishment. Reiner made his first court appearance in the case last month, when he only spoke to say, "Yes, Your Honor," after being asked if he agrees to a January date for his arraignment. He's expected to enter his plea later today. Here, The Hollywood Reporter dissects some key legal considerations ahead of the hearing. The arraignment may be rescheduled again. When time isn't on your side, why not ask for more? Over the past month, Reiner has been meeting with medical professionals to evaluate his mental state at the time of and leading up to the killings. Their involvement in the case has been and will be significant. The caliber of doctors and forensic mental health experts, whose job is to evaluate the intersection of mental illness and the law in these types of cases, that Reiner and his legal team aren't easy to schedule. Absent a complete screening, Jackson may not have landed on a final decision as to a plea, though the default is to plead not guilty. The media-savvy lawyer may also want to delay the arraignment for attention on the case to subside. Another potential factor: there still may be some uncertainty as to Jackson's involvement on Reiner's defense team. The state of Reiner's finances are unknown, but a retainer on a case like this probably lands in the 7 figures, with the cost of taking it to trial well north of $1 million. An undertaking like this case will be very expensive considering the legal counsel involved and the type of work required, says Hallam Danadina, a former state and Court of Appeals judge and prosecutor. It's not unusual for an arraignment to be continued for that reason. Once you're the attorney of record, you can't just walk away from the case. If it does proceed as scheduled, there's no downside to Reiner pleading not guilty considering he can change it at any time. It's been speculated that he'll pursue a not guilty by reason of insanity defense, but more on that later. Prosecutors pursuing a death sentence would be politically fraught. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman unseated his progressive predecessor, George Gaskin, by running on a platform that included getting tougher on crime. One of his first initiatives was restoring the death penalty in Los Angeles. The special circumstances that Reiner committed multiple homicides opened the door to capital punishment. Still, the optics of the case may not lend itself to prosecutors seeking the death sentence, which Hochman said he would only seek in rare cases, like the killing of a law enforcement officer or school shooting. Reiner appears to have a well-documented history of mental health disorders. It's been widely reported that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia several years ago. According to a NBC News report, he was being treated for a serious psychiatric disorder at the time of his parents' murder. The wild card will be Reiner's siblings. They have not said much, but the little they have suggest they're sympathetic toward their brother. In a statement shortly after the killings, Jake and Romy Reiner asked that speculation about the case be tempered with compassion and humanity. The public perception on mental health issues may complicate a death sentence, and seeking it could make Nick a more sympathetic character, says Stephen Cazares, a partner at Foundation Law Group and former prosecutor. And even if you get a death penalty conviction, It doesn't really result in anything with all of the appeals. Why take that on? Reiner's family may be funding his defense. There are a couple of possibilities as to how Reiner is footing his legal bills. The first is that Jackson could be taking the case pro bono. Another is he could be a beneficiary of the trust of his grandfather, a legendary actor, director, and writer whose career spanned decades, or the living trust of his now-deceased parents. The last is that his family is paying. Reiner likely can't draw from his parents' irrevocable trust, if there is one, under what's called the Slayer statute. A person who feloniously and intentionally kills from the decedent is not entitled to benefit from the estate. The law applies even without a criminal conviction, though that fight would play out in probate court. It's possible Reiner was a beneficiary of a living trust set up by his parents, but it appears he wasn't independently wealthy considering he lived on their property. That vehicle also wouldn't provide the oversight Reiner's parents likely would have wanted to curb their son's addiction struggles. That leaves Reiner's family. An insanity defense will be an uphill climb, but could come into play. A successful not guilty by reason of insanity defense is exceedingly rare. It only applies when there's a condition that establishes the accused did not understand what they were doing, or could not understand the difference between right and wrong. A lot of people suffer from mental illness, and that illness plays a role in decision-making, but they still know they're murdering someone. They know murder is wrong, Danadina says. If suffering from a mental illness that rendered the actions he did involuntary, then he would be not guilty of a crime altogether. That's not really what we have here. Here, Reiner left the scene and checked into the Pierside Santa Monica hotel hours after he got into an argument with his parents at a Saturday holiday party at Conan O'Brien's home, sources told The Hollywood Reporter. He was later arrested in South Los Angeles near USC. His movements after the crime may suggest he knew he committed a crime. Still, that's not the only route Reiner can take. First-degree murder requires a showing of premeditation with the intent to kill. If Reiner's mental state was such that it made him incapable to have that intent, he may be guilty of a lesser degree of murder. Even if there's an intentional murder, it can be manslaughter because it can occur in the heat of passion after some kind of provocation, Danadina adds. In some cases, the more violent the assault, the better the argument, is that it wasn't first degree but rather some sort of spasm of violence. Cazares says that Reiner's history of mental health disorders could undermine first-degree murder charges. You can't go both ways, he says. You're either going for the home run or acknowledging that mental health issues played a role and that there's a reason this happened, like him not taking his medication or there being a change in medication. It'll be a major legal battleground as the case progresses.